This Friday, just 3 days after 19 students and 2 adults were killed at this Texas elementary school, former President Donald Trump, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, and Texas Governor Greg Abbott are all scheduled to speak at the NRA's big annual event in Houston. Now, it's easy to lose hope when you see Republicans not changing their behavior at all after a tragedy like this, but it's important to remember that when elected leaders won't budge, apply pressure. This was the former Florida governor, Rick Scott, speaking at that same big annual NRA event in 2017. That was a year after the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando that killed 49 people. There he was, on stage at an event held by the NRA, which consistently gave Rick Scott an A-plus rating and ran ads supporting Scott in election after election after election. But then there was the shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. 17 people were killed. 14 others were injured. The political aftermath of that shooting could have easily been just the same empty dance that we've seen from Republicans time and time again on this issue. But it wasn't. Not totally. This was Florida Governor Rick Scott in 2018, 3 weeks after that shooting. And what you see him doing there, he's signing a law that raised the minimum age for all gun purchases in Florida from 18 to 21. It also added a 3-day waiting period for buying a gun and banned the controversial bump stock attachment that retrofits a rifle so that it fires almost as fast as a fully automatic weapon in which you pull the trigger once and multiple bullets come out. That bill that Rick Scott signed, that was the first piece of successful gun control legislation in Florida in more than 20 years. And the NRA bumped Rick Scott down from an A to a C. Now, was that Florida legislation perfect? No, not by a long shot. But if it existed in Texas, yesterday's shooter would not have been able to casually buy the guns the way he did. So how did that Florida legislation happen? How did the NRA's preferred candidate, an A-plus defender of its cause, end up adopting common sense gun reform? It was the activists. The activists that came out in support of doing something. They came out of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas shooting. The kids made it happen. They kept the issue in the spotlight. They made it one that Scott could not ignore, even if he wanted to. This is a great example of how pressure works. Politicians can afford to alienate some voters to keep the NRA happy, but at some point, that has to give. It is easy to feel that there's no way to make progress on this issue, particularly in the last 10 days. But recent history tells us that change is, in fact, possible. That's not all, by the way. Since 2018, 14 states have passed what are called red flag laws. These are the states. They allow loved ones or the police to petition the courts to confiscate firearms from people who might be at risk of harming themselves or others. That, too, came about because of public pressure. And earlier this year, Remington, the manufacturer of the AR-15 style rifle that the shooter at Sandy Hook Elementary School used to kill 20 children, 6 school employees, and his mother, Remington settled a lawsuit with families of the victims of that massacre for $73 million. It's believed to be the largest payout by a gun manufacturer in a mass shooting case, and it was particularly notable because for well over a decade, federal law has essentially shielded the entire firearms industry from litigation. Now the family of one of the victims of the Buffalo mass shooting may use that lawsuit as a roadmap to seek justice for themselves. So progress is possible. It takes an awful lot of effort, but it is possible. Joining us now is Joshua Koskoff, the attorney who got that groundbreaking settlement from Remington for the families of the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre. Joshua, thank you for joining us tonight. I'd love if you could help our viewers understand the basis of your lawsuit in Sandy Hook, how it might be a roadmap for holding manufacturers of weapons, particularly the ones used in the Buffalo supermarket shooting last week, responsible.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Ali. What we focused on in our lawsuit was something I learned doing my research and investigation into the case, which is that AR-15s were always available in America. When you and I were growing up, you could get an AR-15, but we didn't grow up in an age of mass shootings. And all of that changed sometime around the mid-2000s when private equity money came in from New York, and they decided that they would build and revitalize the gun industry by courting purchasers of AR-15s instead of having consumers seek out AR-15s. AR-15s were selling about 100,000 units a year in 2005. By 2012, 2.1 million. And
wow.
What we found was that, wow is right. And the reason why we're seeing all these mass shootings is not mental illness, as the governor of Texas thinks and is often stated by the NRA and their acolytes. Because when you and I were growing up, there was also mental illness. There were also kids getting bullied. There were also all these things. But what there wasn't was these kids were not being courted to sell combat weapons by the gun industry. Why weren't they being courted? Not because the gun industry is a particularly ethical industry, but because they couldn't court them. They couldn't court them because natural barriers were in place that prevented kids and teenagers and troubled kids from getting access or information on the weapons. And what we learned was that all changed in the mid-2000s. This money comes in, and they said, we can sell more of these weapons that have been on the shelves for 40 years and create a market for them by courting these users through the modern means of courtship or marketing, which is the internet.
Yep.
And so now it's going around the parent, right? We don't know as parents what our kids are looking at, and the kids are getting courted by these companies, and that led to this explosion in sales, and that's clearly led to this exponential increase in mass shooting. It was a simple cause and effect to draw when we saw all the information, but I think it's really surprising to learn that this is an old product, this AR-15, and it hasn't changed one bit. But what's
It hasn't changed. The audience has changed. And one of the things you learned in this case, in addition, or achieved, in addition to getting cash, part of the settlement that you achieved was Remington agreeing to release thousands of pages of internal company documents, including plans for, as you just described, how they marketed the weapon in particular that was used in Sandy Hook. What do you do with those documents? What did you learn from them? What do you do with them?
Well, what I learned gave me the basis to essentially explain this to your listeners, which is that the incidence of mass shootings that we're seeing today is not a coincidence. It's not because all of a sudden the country became full of mentally ill people. It's because of this concerted effort by the gun industry to sell as many AR-15s as they could to an expanded market, notably to hook kids and teenagers as they're growing up. I mean, think about it. The 18-year-old who perpetrated this terrible shooting yesterday, the day he turned 18, he knew what weapon he was getting. Why? Because the companies have been courting him for years through the internet and through first-person shooter games. I think you'll see, and the public will see exactly what was going on, and it'll answer a lot of these questions that people are asking today.
Joshua, thank you for joining us tonight. Joshua Koskoff is the attorney who got that groundbreaking settlement for the families of the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre. We appreciate your time.